Hey folks, this is Vint with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and welcome to another episode of Vintage Story. Today, we're going to take a quick look at farming and fruit trees. Let's just jump right into it. Now, you're not going to like hearing this, but the first part involves a lot of walking, a lot of exploring. You have to find seeds first in order to plant your crops, right? So you're going to be walking around and you'll see crops in various stages of growth. If you punch a crop and try to collect it before it's done growing, there's only a chance that a seed will drop. Only when a crop is fully grown will a seed be guaranteed. So you have two options. One is to save the location on your map and come back later when it's fully grown, or just take the chance, punch everything, and hope that you get some seeds out of it. Now, as you're walking around, you may come across different types of soil with different fertility bonuses. The most common that I've seen, at least in my playthrough, is medium and low. Now, I started off seeing a bunch of low, and then eventually I started seeing medium. The nice thing about soil is that you can dig it up and bring it with you back to your base and use it to start your farming. So you could start off with medium, and then as you find high, you can replace the medium with the high, at some point if you wanted to. There's also a player-made soil type, which I personally have not tried to do. You need a lot of resources for it just for the one block, so I don't think it's totally worth it considering I'm more of a casual player. You'll need a lot of compost, a lot of bone meal, and a lot of powdered charcoal. If you have tried it yourself and want to report back and let me know how good it is, feel free to do so in the comments below. So at some point, you're going to have enough seeds to start your very own little field. And it doesn't matter when you do this, honestly, just keep an eye on the actual month, because if you're too far north or too far south, the winters will be very harsh and crops won't grow and die off. So if you're very far north, very far south, I highly recommend starting off somewhere in May and going from there, because even in April, it gets pretty cold. And as far as the layout is concerned, I do a row, and then I till it with the hoe, and then I put water in between. You don't have to do it that way. Water will give moisture to blocks, I believe 3 blocks away from the water block. However, the only downside to doing that is that the moisture is a lot less. So what I mean by that is water touching a block provides 75% moisture, whereas water trying to touch a block 2 or 3 blocks away only gives 50% moisture. And what that means is that the crops will grow more slowly. Okay, but so it's just, again, it's more aesthetic for me. You're going to have so much food, you won't know what to do with it at some point anyway. But yeah, I surround the fields with a fence, which prevents animals from getting to it. I haven't seen them do that yet, but I'm just preparing for it. This is Vintage Story after all. And I also put a little moat surrounding my field so that if animals do try to get to it, they fall in and I can just kill them quickly for food or for the leather working process and all that jazz. But it's up to you on how you want to do it. One thing to keep an eye on the very top, it says required nutrient N. And there are 3 different nutrient types in the game. There's N, P, and K. I'm not going to bother with the long names for them, but typically you're given the option to fertilize your fields so that they grow more quickly. Now, in theory, if you've got the basics down, you've got the moisture, and it's the right temperature out, they will grow just more slowly without the fertilizer. But if you want to add fertilizer, look on the very top. It says required fertilizer, and just add the right nutrient to it. And I'll quickly go over what those different nutrient types are and how to get them in a moment. Now, you can also build yourself a little greenhouse. It's just surrounded by walls. Just make sure that 50% of the roof is glass, or more than 50% of the roof is glass, so that the game considers that room a greenhouse. And you'll see on the very bottom of the tooltip on the top of the screen, it says +5C for greenhouse. So the game will actually tell you in the tooltip on the top if it's a greenhouse or not and give you that. But again, keep in mind, if you're very far north, very far south, that won't save it from the winter. So yeah, you may want to consider farming toward the equator where things are always warm. So here's a quick look at the different fertilizer types and what kind of nutrients they offer. So if you see a crop is low in K or needs K, then you'll want to give it some saltpeter. Okay. And in my playthrough, I've seen saltpeter, bone meal, and compost. I have not run into potash yet. So I'll give examples on how to get saltpeter, bone meal, and compost in just a minute. Another thing I want to quickly show you is that on the wiki, there is a full list of the different crop types and what their preferred nutrient is. And it's very important, I think, to rotate out your crops so that the soil has a chance to sort of, I don't know, to repair itself for that particular nutrient type. So if you just harvested something that needs like K nutrient, then you may want to plant something that would then need P nutrient or an N nutrient so that you're not doubling down on that K nutrient. That gives the soil time to fully repair itself. So in order to find saltpeter, it's just a matter of digging down far enough or finding a bunch of cave systems and exploring them. If you go down far enough, eventually you'll run into like a layer with a bunch of saltpeter there. It looks like sand kind of layered over a block. Just take your shovel and start digging and you'll collect a bunch of it. Just keep in mind it is underground, so you may come across some nasty enemies, so just watch your back. As far as bone meal is concerned, you're going to be probably killing animals regularly as you play this, and all you got to do is grind up the bones in a kern in order to get bone meal out of it. And then lastly, compost. I'm a hoarder when it comes to food and everything else, so I end up with a lot of spoiled food. That's exactly what you need. You need rot. Whenever food spoils in this game, it turns into rot. Take that rot, put it in a barrel, and click the button in order to seal it up, and just wait a while. That will turn into compost, which again serves as fertilizer for your crops. I can't stress enough to keep an eye on the outside temperature and the rainfall in this area whenever you hit C to open up your character sheet. The outside temperature will play a huge role into whether or not crops are successful in growing, so keep an eye on that. Try to grow near the equator if you can, or in warm areas. And also make sure that you're planting your crops in an area with common or very common rainfall. In the beginning, you'll have to water your crops anyway with a watering can because you don't get buckets until much, much, much later when you've actually crafted saw blades and the like. But once you get everything up and running, it'll look great, trust me. And I think you'll get a big kick out of farming in this game, especially since you can actually plant fruit trees. Yeah, you can actually plant fruit trees. I came across a pink apple tree in my playthrough. It was during the winter, so I couldn't really see it growing anything. But you can actually saw off the branches and then replant those branches in 2 different locations. You can either graft it onto an existing tree, or you can plant it in the ground and hope it takes up root that way. Now, I have to warn you, it's only a percentage chance that this actually works. So make sure you mark where the tree is on your map so you can come back to it later. And that way you can get a regular supply of all these branches so that you can keep trying, or these cuttings that you can keep trying to get a successful tree going somewhere else. You only get a 40% chance of success if you plant it in the ground and a 50% chance if you graft it onto another tree. And that ought about do it. Just as a reminder, you're going to start off pretty small in the beginning. You're not going to have a whole lot of crops, a whole big field. You're not going to have any of that. And you're going to have to probably water them by hand, assuming that you didn't plant the crops that you do have or the seeds that you do have next to existing waters. So don't get frustrated with the farming process. What you saw in this video was more later stage farming. It's a story. So you're going to be telling a story as you're doing things. You'll start off small, maybe next to a lake or something, and then slowly you'll build this watering can and start watering further in next to your base or wherever you have your base. And then eventually you'll craft yourself some buckets, and then you can actually start building yourself some nice little streams or whatever, and you can start watering your crop. Then you get glass, and then you can make greenhouses. It'll trust me, it's worth the effort to tell your story, as it were. But if you liked this video, feel free to subscribe, and that way you can stay up to date with any new content I happen to publish. This is Vince. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you all next time. Take care.